Rewind the clock to 2013. Three of the fiercest car companies on the planet, Ferrari, McLaren, and Porsche, each dropped a hybrid hypercar within months of one another, and old-school gearheads everywhere had the exact same reaction. Outrage. Purists swore a battery pack had no business anywhere near a real performance car. Then the lap times came back. On September 4, 2013, a Porsche 918 Spyder, running its optional Weissach package, tore around the 12-mile Nürburgring Nordschleife in 6 minutes and 57 seconds, becoming the first production car in history to break the 7-minute barrier. 887 horsepower, a combination of a 608 horsepower V8 and a pair of electric motors, one on each axle. 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. Top speed of 211 miles per hour. The McLaren P1 and the Ferrari LaFerrari were chasing that exact same benchmark within months, records that pure gasoline power alone simply could not touch anymore. That so-called Holy Trinity proved something the entire industry needed to hear. Hybrid technology was never really about slowing anything down. It was about adding a second, instantaneous power source underneath a driver's right foot. And 13 years later, in 2026, that same electric assist philosophy has finally trickled all the way down from seven-figure hypercars into the exact trucks, SUVs, minivans, and sports cars that regular blue-collar, old-school gearheads actually park in their own driveways. But let's be honest about where the skepticism came from in the first place. Back in 1997, when the original Toyota Prius launched in Japan, and especially after it landed in the United States in the year 2000, gearhead culture wrote the whole idea off almost instantly. Hybrids became the punchline. They were the cars parked outside coffee shops, not the cars parked in a work truck spot at a job site. For nearly 2 straight decades, if a vehicle had a battery in it, the assumption was automatic. Slow, boring, and built purely to please the EPA. That assumption stuck around so long that plenty of buyers never bothered updating it. They should have. For decades, telling a truck guy his next rig might be a hybrid was a fast way to get laughed out of the shop. Hybrid meant Prius. Hybrid meant hypermiling. Hybrid meant giving up horsepower, giving up torque, and giving up towing capacity in exchange for a smug little readout on the dashboard telling you how many miles per gallon you just squeezed out of a stoplight. That stereotype is officially dead in 2026, and we're about to prove it to you, spec by spec, pound foot by pound foot. Before we get into it, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button, because this countdown covers 7 brand new 2026 hybrids that don't just sip fuel, they haul harder, tow heavier, and in one very special case near the top of this list, they go flat out faster than the gasoline-only car they replaced. Let's get into it. What changed? Simple. Manufacturers figured out that electric motors are exceptionally good at exactly the thing truck buyers already cared about most: instant torque, delivered the moment you touch the throttle, before a turbocharger even has time to spool or a gasoline engine has time to climb into its power band. That's not an efficiency trick anymore, that's a genuine performance advantage, and it's why almost every full-size truck maker in America now offers some form of electrification on their most capable trims, not their cheapest ones. Keep that in mind as we count down, because every single vehicle on this list earned its spot for exactly that reason: raw capability first, fuel saving second. Kicking things off at number 7, and yes, we are opening a truck countdown with a minivan, so stick with us here. The 2026 Toyota Sienna Woodland Edition Hybrid runs a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine paired with Toyota's Hybrid System 2 and standard all-wheel drive, for a net combined output of 245 horsepower. Here's the part that should earn some respect from the skeptics. That all-wheel drive system can preemptively send up to 80% of available torque rearward the instant it senses front will slip off the line, and it can vary that split all the way down to a 20/80 front-to-rear ratio once the surface gets slick, all without the driver touching a single button. It's rated to tow up to 3,500 pounds. It carries an EPA-estimated combined fuel economy of up to 36 miles per gallon, and pricing runs from around $51,600 up past $56,000 for a well-equipped example. Parts and service are as easy to find as any Toyota on the road, so ownership costs stay low for the long haul. Toyota has now been building hybrid systems for more than 2 decades, and that engineering maturity shows in the Sienna, which has quietly become one of the most dependable vehicles Toyota sells in any category, minivan or otherwise. Why should an old-school guy respect a minivan? Because strip away the sliding doors and the built-in vacuum, and what's underneath is a genuinely capable all-weather machine that will out-traction most crossover SUVs in a snowstorm every single time, without you ever thinking about it. Moving up to number 6. The 2026 Honda Accord Hybrid. Old-school guys have always been suspicious of anything that doesn't have a real transmission bolted behind the engine, and here's the twist. The Accord Hybrid doesn't have one. Honda's 2-motor hybrid system pairs a 2-liter Atkinson Cycle 4-cylinder with a pair of electric motors in a setup Honda calls direct drive. There's no torque converter, no belt, and no traditional gear sets doing the work, just the interplay between those 2 motors managing acceleration and cruising. Combined output lands at 204 horsepower and 247 pound-feet of torque, good for a 0 to 60 run in around 6.7 seconds, and EPA fuel economy that climbs past 50 miles per gallon in city driving on the top trim. Pricing starts around $34,000 and tops out near $41,000 for a loaded touring model. This is the car for the guy who's owned 4 Accords in a row because not one of them has ever let him down, and the fact that this one barely visits a gas station is just a bonus stacked on top of Honda's already bulletproof reputation for reliability and resale value. The Accord nameplate has been a fixture in American driveways since 1976, and that near half-century of trust is exactly why so many lifelong Honda owners are willing to give the hybrid powertrain a shot without a second thought. Number 5 brings us into proper truck territory with the 2026 Toyota Sequoia i-Force Max, currently the only body-on-frame, hybrid-powered, full-size SUV left on the entire market. It runs the same i-Force Max hardware found under the hood of its pickup truck sibling. A 3.4-liter twin-turbo V6 with an electric motor sandwiched directly between the engine and a 10-speed automatic transmission, for a combined 437 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 comes in right around 6 seconds flat, which is quick for a 3-row SUV that can also tow up to 9,500 pounds. And here's the detail that should win over any traditionalist. The Sequoia still runs a solid rear axle, the same rugged old-school setup that generations of serious off-roaders and heavy tow rigs have trusted, instead of the independent rear suspension that every one of its unibody rivals switch to for a smoother ride. Pricing starts around $64,000 and climbs well past $85,000 for a loaded capstone trim. An available TRD off-road package layers on all-terrain tires, a locking rear differential, and Bilstein shocks, proving Toyota built this hybrid to actually get dirty, not just to sit pretty in a suburban driveway. Number 4 keeps us in the Toyota family with the 2026 Tundra i-Force Max. And this one comes with a little history old-school Toyota guys still haven't fully forgiven. Back in 2022, Toyota killed off the 5.7-liter V8 in the redesigned third-generation Tundra. That old V8 made 381 horsepower and 401 pound-feet of torque, running through an old 6-speed automatic, and traditionalists were furious to see it go. Toyota replaced it entirely with a twin-turbo V6 lineup, and fast forward to today, that decision looks a lot smarter than it did at the time. The i-Force Max hybrid version of that same 3.4-liter twin-turbo V6 makes 437 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque running through a modern 10-speed automatic, available in both 2-wheel and 4-wheel drive. Do the math, and that's 56 more horsepower and 182 more pound-feet of torque than the old V8 ever produced, from an engine with 2 fewer cylinders. The gas-only SR5 trim actually holds the Tundra's outright towing record at 12,000 pounds, while the i-Force Max hybrid trims top out around 11,450 pounds. And either way, that torque figure buries anything the naturally aspirated V8 ever managed. Pricing runs from around $60,000 to $80,000 depending on configuration, and because the Tundra sells in such high volume, parts and maintenance stay simple and affordable compared to more exotic hybrid trucks. Number 3 brings the blue oval into the mix with the 2026 Ford F-150 Power Boost Hybrid. This truck pairs a 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6 with a 35-kilowatt electric motor and a 1.5 kilowatt-hour battery pack for a total output of 430 horsepower and up to 578 pound-feet of torque, enough to hit 0 to 60 in around 5.6 seconds, quicker than plenty of naturally aspirated V8s ever managed in their prime. Maximum towing checks in at 11,600 pounds. But here's the party trick no gasoline only V8 can ever touch. Ford's Pro Power onboard system turns the Power Boost's hybrid battery and generator setup into a mobile power station, exporting up to 7.2 kilowatts of usable electricity on higher trims, enough to run job site power tools all day long, or with the right transfer switch installed, back up your entire house during a blackout. Standard towing technology on the Power Boost includes Pro Trailer Backup Assist and Trailer Sway Control, features that used to be reserved for far pricier trucks. And for anyone wondering, Ford hasn't abandoned V8 power entirely. The range-topping F-150 Raptor still runs a supercharged 5.2-liter V8, but the fact that a hybrid V6 now outtows and nearly matches the acceleration of Ford's own naturally aspirated V8 says everything about how far this technology has come. Pricing starts around $48,000 and climbs past $70,000 for a fully loaded Platinum model. Number 2 is where things get genuinely absurd, with the 2026 Ram 1500 Ramcharger. First, a quick history lesson, because the Ramcharger name isn't new. Dodge slapped that exact badge on a full-size SUV all the way back in the 1970s and 80s, and Ram has resurrected it for what might be the single wildest powertrain layout on this entire list. This truck is what's known as an EREV, or Extended Range Electric Vehicle. 2 electric drive motors, one powering each axle, combine for 663 horsepower and 615 pound-feet of torque, split across all 4 wheels for serious traction. Under the hood sits a 3.6-liter Pentastar V6, but that engine never physically turns the wheels. Instead, it spins an onboard generator to keep the battery topped off once the truck's electric-only range runs dry. On a full charge, Ram rates the Ramcharger for around 145 miles of pure electric driving, and once you factor in a full 27-gallon fuel tank feeding the generator, total combined range climbs to an estimated 690 miles, further than almost any electric truck currently on sale, with zero range anxiety involved. Towing capacity checks in at a class-leading 14,000 pounds, and 0 to 60 arrives in around 4.4 seconds, which is supercar territory, in a full-size pickup truck. Ram executives have said pricing will land a bit above the average transaction price of a full-size pickup, which currently puts a base Ramcharger somewhere in the neighborhood of $70,000 to $75,000 to start. Ram engineers even tuned the system specifically for towing scenarios, so hooking up a heavy trailer doesn't wreck the range math the way it does on a pure battery electric truck. For the guy who tows a fifth wheel every single weekend and always assumed range-extended electric trucks were a gimmick, the Ramcharger exists specifically to change his mind. And that brings us to number 1, the car that ties this entire list together, and the reason we called this video what we did. The 2026 Porsche 911 Carrera GT Hybrid. For more than 6 decades, the 911 has been the single most sacred nameplate in all of sports car culture, a car whose racing lineage has claimed class victories at the 24 Hours of Le Mans across generations, and has spent decades as the default answer whenever anyone asks what a real driver's car should feel like. So when Porsche announced they were bolting a battery onto it, it sent a genuine shockwave through the enthusiast world. Here's why the purists were wrong to panic. Porsche built an entirely new 3.6-liter turbocharged flat six specifically for this car, and instead of using electric power to save fuel, they used it purely to kill turbo lag and add violence to the way power arrives. There's a small electric motor built directly inside the turbocharger housing itself, sitting between the compressor wheel and the exhaust wheel, spinning that single turbo up to full boost in well under 1 second, compared to more than 3 seconds on the previous GTS's naturally spooling setup. A second, more powerful electric motor lives inside the dual-clutch transmission, contributing 53 horsepower and 110 pound-feet of its own instant torque. Add it all together and the total system output comes to 532 horsepower and 449 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 arrives in 2.9 seconds, the quarter mile disappears in 11 seconds flat, and top speed lands at 194 miles per hour. Porsche managed all of this while adding just around 103 pounds of extra hardware to the car, so it still drives, sounds, and feels like a proper 911, just a genuinely quicker one. Pricing for the 2026 Carrera GT Hybrid starts at around $181,000 before a single option box gets checked, and comfortably crosses $200,000 once you start building your own. This is the car that proves the entire thesis of this video. Hybrid technology was never here to make performance cars slower, quieter, or more boring. It's here to make them faster. And if the 911, the single most revered performance nameplate on planet Earth, can go quicker because of a battery, there is no old-school argument left standing. So there you have it, 7 brand new 2026 hybrids, everything from a minivan that will out-traction your buddy's crossover in a snowstorm, all the way up to a 911 that uses electric motors to hunt down supercars. Every single one of these machines was built by an engineering team that decided a battery wasn't a compromise, it was a tool, and in 2026, that tool is finally making trucks pull harder, SUVs tow smarter, and even the most sacred sports car on the planet run quicker than it ever could on gasoline alone. Which one of these would actually get you to cross over to the hybrid side? And did we miss one that deserved a spot on this list? Drop it in the comments below. We read every single one of them. Until next time, keep the revs up, and we'll see you in the next video.